Hi, this is Gladsley Miller, and you're listening to the Learn, Apply, Repeat podcast. Welcome to a new episode of Learn, Apply, Repeat. One of the main reasons that some of my clients they come and ask for my help is because they struggle with time management. And I'll share today my own learnings about this skill and how I've learned from zero structure to the most data-driven way that I could figure it out. I remember early on when I was working as an IT technician back in São Paulo in Brazil, and we used to have a ticketing system with every single professor that had a problem with their computers. They would open a ticket in there, and then we had to prioritize in terms of urgency. And I also had some interns that I had to handle. They would help me close those tickets, but I also had to spend some time with them, teaching them how to format computers, and they would teach me some programming languages. Anyways, I had to do a lot of things, and I had no preparation at all for that. Even with the ticketing system, that helped me a lot because I could figure out some of the priorities, but I didn't know how much time I spent fixing a computer or teaching one of the interns how to do the job. And I'll be honest, I worked like that for at least a couple of years. And I won't say that I didn't learn anything, but in terms of time management, it was pretty brutal. The only tool that I knew before that was the Pomodoro technique. So the Pomodoro technique is you set a timer for 25 minutes when you do a full focus mode. You disable any notification in your phone, in your computer, and you do not check emails. You're forbidden to stand up and go to the restroom or make some tea, anything. You have to do whatever the task you have in your hands for 25 minutes, and then you have a break of 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, you do whatever you have to do. Restroom break, get some tea, get some drink, check whatever social media you are addicted to. If you are addicted to, check your emails, and then boom, 25 minutes again, you focus on doing that. So each 25 minutes is like what it said as a Pomodoro. I used that technique to complete my master's, so I had to write my whole dissertation. And then I remember I would get super distracted. Facebook was super huge in Brazil, and I was addicted to one of the games. That was my only way to focus and write things down. So in that sense, when I was working in IT, the only tool that I had available was the Pomodoro technique. So if I had to fix a computer, I would set up the timer and I would get it sorted in those 25 minutes. But that wasn't enough. I didn't use that to set time to be able to teach the mentees what they had to do. The interns, I consider them as mentees as well. But I didn't do that. So I got lost in jumping from one task to the other. And while I wasn't really closing some tickets, that sometimes we didn't have much stuff, or we needed a piece of the computer and then we had to wait. I didn't really learn much. And fast forward some years, when I moved to UK, I worked for a web agency. And the very first thing that they told me was that I had to fill in timesheets. And I had to give an estimate of how long it would take to build a website, sometimes with or without a design. And as I was starting that new career, I had no clue how to do it. So I said, I don't know, it could be like a week, but I'll see what I do. And every single day I had to fill in the timesheets to figure out how much time I spent in that. And it took me a little bit of time. And then I found an app called Toggle, and I started to track every single thing that I did. So if I started to build a website, I would add in there. If I were touching Photoshop, I would do that. So if I were doing some research, I would track that thing. If I had a break, I would track that thing. Every little bit that I did when I was in the agency, I would track. So by the end of the day or by the end of the week, I would know with the precision of seconds how much time I spent. So I used always the same kind of naming convention of what I was doing. So let's say web development, I knew that I was writing code. So Photoshop, I knew that I was doing some design work, and that helped me do my timesheets, which was the very first thing. But with the data over time, I started to be able to measure things a bit better. So whenever I was asked to estimate how much it would take to build a website, I could go back into the data and check how much I spent in specific projects. So web development, I would always put the name of the client in there. So I would know which was the project that I was working on, because it was common for me to work in one or two projects in the same day. So if I had to ship something quicker, I would do it in here. And then if I had to jump into another project, I would just swap on Toggl. And that started to give me enough data to help me estimate better the time of the development of each one of the new websites that we had to do. And that was super helpful. And then I got really into data, and I found another app called Rescue Time. At that time it was super free, and that was the most invasive one now looking back, because I installed it and it would track everything that I was doing inside my computer. So if I open a browser, it would tell me which websites I visited, and that's when I figure out how much time I was in my tiny little breaks. So I was using a bit of Pomodoro technique. I was tracking things with Toggl. But then during my 5-minute breaks of the Pomodoro technique, I would see where I was going. And sometimes I didn't use Pomodoro all the time when I was coding, because I used to get into the flow pretty easy. But then I could see how much time I was spending going, for example, on Spotify and picking my songs while I was coding, or checking emails, or checking when I was Googling. So I could see whenever I spent on Google, which usually meant that I was trying to debug something or trying to learn how to do something in the front end. And then I figured out how much time I was spending on Facebook. And that tool gave me some comparisons with other people as well, so I could see the time that I was spending on the websites that I shouldn't be spending. So at that time, that was like the biggest breakthrough, and I'm like, okay, now I know where I'm wasting time. But I know that there are like Chrome extensions that you can block. Like you cannot visit these websites. So let's say Facebook or Instagram, you cannot visit this from this time to this time. Having Rescue Time in my computer was great for my own kind of growth. So I took these time management to a different level. I checked the website recently. I think it's a paid service, but it's super invasive nowadays that we are all into this kind of data. Not everyone will be comfortable with this one, but for me it was pretty good. There may be some tool that it's just like local, it never shares this information. And please, if you find this tool, please let me know as well, because I'd love to retrack my things. Although I'm pretty good with time management, I wanted that there are some patterns that I see that depending on the time of the day. And by the way, it's like I used to do that with my personal computer as well. So after I had one in the office and I had one in my personal computer at home. So even at home, I knew how much time I was spending on social media. At that time, I had my iPhone as well, but I didn't use it as much, especially at home. I was always into like having a big screen and doing things in there. And I know that on the phone you can have this one as well. But that, if you know any kind of like open source thing that is only on your computer, please let me know. Leave a comment somewhere, get in touch wherever, LinkedIn, or send me an email, and I will dig into that one. So these tools helped me a lot in terms of realizing where I was spending my time, where I should focus more time, and how to avoid distractions. Simply start tracking for 1 week when you start watching Netflix, for example, or when you go into your favorite social media, Instagram, TikTok, maybe, I don't know, Facebook, and you kind of try to get as close as possible to the amount of minutes you spend in there. And then after 1 week of checking the data, doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as possible to the reality, you're going to see where you're spending the time and where you can actually replace that time into something more productive. So maybe learning a new skill or getting better at something that will make your life easier, or even automating something. I don't know, learn a bit more about AI. Learning how to do time management, it's a great skill and something that I help a lot of my clients, business owners as well, that sometimes they feel like they are like, I don't have time to do anything. And then we do this exercise using Toggle, for example, Clockify or whatever, for 1 week, 2 weeks, and then we can pinpoint where they're wasting time, and then we shuffle into a better place to invest their time. So this is it. See you later. Take care. Bye bye.